'cause I see the born of no return. It's just ahead now, it's just ahead now. Can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening. It's Monday, January 6th, 2014, and yep, I'm Gary Hendershot, and once again, for the next hour or so, I'm going to be barking at the moon. You know, I was watching the chat on the way in here tonight, and it's always funny to see what folks are talking about, what's important to them. And I guess right now what everybody's talking about is the cold weather. Well, you know, as a Southern boy who's, you know, in his long johns and a flannel shirt, you know, yeah, I got to tell you, it's a little chill right now here in my secret underground bunker just a few miles south of Washington, D.C., just moments south of the Mason-Dixon line. Well, for those of you who have forgotten what it looks like, you know, I'm gonna put a little eye candy up on the video representation. For those that are watching this in video, they're seeing a nice picture of a swanky equatorial hotel with the sun shining, and the pool is inviting, and the beach chairs are all set out, you know, and you can just imagine how warm and cozy it is just a little south of the border. But getting back to home, much of the nation right now is gripped in what can only be described as unseasonably cold winter weather. Now, I've heard some folks chime in from Arizona that says, you know, what are you whining and crying about? You know, it's 60 degrees here. I had some folks, you know, who are down in Panama saying, you know, you sissies, you know, what are you complaining about? It's 70 degrees. You know, the only problem we got's you know, a little rain. Well, I got news for you, man. It's cold where I am, and compared to some of the folks just a little bit west and a little bit north of me, I'm in good shape. I mean, you know, the people up in the Northeast and in the Midwest have really taken a beating with what they're calling, let's see, I got to get this right, a polar vortex. Polar vortex. That's a new one on me. Yeah, I am kind of an old geezer, and I've been listening to weather reports for, you know, about the last 50 years or so, and I don't think I ever heard anybody ever say anything about a polar vortex before. But here's the article. This is out of Russia Today. You know, it's always amusing when you got to go to Russia to get well-written news articles, but hey, you know, it is what it is. Let's see here. The American Midwest and Northeast have braced for a polar vortex, a megastorm that is expected to bring record low temperatures on Monday. Yep, you betcha. So far, extreme weather conditions have claimed at least 16 lives, paralyzed travel, and caused power shortages. For those exposed to the inclement conditions, frostbite and hypothermia will be a danger as minus 31 degrees Celsius, man, that's cold, is expected in North Dakota. You betcha. They're warning us here that in conditions like we've got right now, for you folks who are not accustomed to really, really cold weather like this, you know, one of the warnings they're giving us here is that in these conditions, frostbite sets in on exposed skin within as little as 5 minutes. 5 minutes exposure to weather this cold can cause frostbite. You know, that's something you go out and, you know, try to scrape the ice off your car, come in and you find out you lost a couple of toes for your trouble scraping the ice off your car. Bottom line is, you know, if you're not accustomed to this type of weather, it does require a certain amount of sanity and preparation. To all you illegal aliens out there who are living in my area, who've come up here from southern climes, please, if you don't know how to drive in this stuff, would you please stay home? Okay? I don't need you out there killing innocent people with your, you know, crazy, insane driving. Meteorologists blame the weather conditions on yuppies and SUVs. No, they blame it on a dense pool of counterclockwise rotating air. Okay. You know, I guess they're trying to explain something to me. I'm not sure I can really picture that in my mind. I kind of figured somebody'd be blaming it on chemtrails or HARP or, you know, yuppies and SUVs or, you know, whatever. One interesting thing, though, that, you know, we got this, you know, big ball in the sky that glows during the day. You know, we call it the sun. And a lot of these people who talk about, you know, climate change and global warming and all that stuff, you know, they tend to kind of ignore the fact that, you know, we got this big thing up in the sky that is rather hot, and it has some, I think, impact on our weather here on this little dirt ball. The sun just recently flipped its magnetic poles. What used to be the north magnetic pole is now the south magnetic pole on the sun. It was kind of wobbling there for a few years, and people were watching it saying, wow, we've never seen this before. And turns out it quite literally flipped its magnetic poles. Now, a lot of people out there go, oh my goodness, the sun flipped 180 degrees. No. The surface of the sun did not flip, but it did exchange its magnetic poles just within the past couple of weeks. I don't know if that's why all of a sudden we've gotten a severe bit of weather or not. But somehow, I kind of think, you know, just being an old country boy with straw for brains, I kind of think maybe, just maybe, that is a somewhat more likely possibility than yuppies in their SUVs and HARP and chemtrails and all that. Now, I don't know, just one man's opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I don't claim to be any expert on these things. I do know that as bad as the last couple days have been, I've seen worse, okay? Even here in Northern Virginia, south of the Mason-Dixon line, I have seen more inclement weather than what we've got right now. So before anybody gets crazy saying that, you know, space aliens or holes in the ozone or yuppies in their SUVs cause this current cold spell, might want to sit back, have 4 fingers of a good southern sipping whiskey, and think a little bit before you start running your mouth. But again, that's just one man's opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own. There's another article from Russia Today. How many of you out there live in areas where they're doing what's referred to as fracking? Hydraulic fracturing. Hydraulic fracturing. They dig a, you know, borehole about 4 to 6 inch diameter. They go down pretty deep, And then they pump a chemical slurry under pressure deep down into the rock. Now this rock is typically oil and gas bearing shale strata, and under pressure and chemical influences, they kind of break the rock up, and that allows them to extract oil that might have gotten away from them using older techniques. All things considered, I mean, the energy sector of the U.S. economy is one of the bright spots. I remember back in the 70s when the Arabs boycotted us and wouldn't sell us any oil. I remember having to, stand in line on an odd day or an even day, I can't even remember which, to buy my 5 gallons of gasoline that I was entitled to, and everybody at that time, energy independence, we got to be free of the Mideast for oil. Well, we still buy an incredible amount of the oil we use here in the United States. Not from the Middle East, but, because the Middle Eastern oil typically goes to Europe and Japan. We pay to guard the trade routes so that it gets there safely, but our oil, a lot of our imported oil we get from like Venezuela and South America and other places, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, though, the United States is now a net exporter of oil products. And as far as refined petroleum products, we're one of the largest exporters in the world. By refined, I mean stuff like home heating oil, diesel fuel, gasoline, stuff that you pay too much for at the pump. The reason you pay too much for it is because the stuff that we burn, we buy from somebody else, and the stuff that we drill here, we sell overseas. Yeah, let me repeat that. We produce oil here. We are a net energy producer. We produce more oil here in the United States than we need, to such a degree that we now export petroleum and refined petroleum products to other people in the world. But we still buy the oil that we consume from other people. Once again, I am just an old Southern boy with straw for brains, but something about that just doesn't seem quite right to me. Maybe I need to go back to school and get a degree in economics, but that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But, on this fracking issue, one of the reasons why we now produce more oil than we consume is because of fracking. Now, some people say that fracking represents some health issues, particularly in areas where, they decide to do hydraulic fracturing in an area where people are dependent on the aquifer for their water supplies. There are indications that fracking may be spoiling our freshwater aquifers. Now, we've all seen the YouTube videos, where the guy runs his tap in the kitchen, hits it with his, flicks it with his Bic, and the faucet flames up. Well, that's true. It does happen, but oftentimes what you're seeing is, the fact that, that there are methane pockets underground that sometimes do leach into well water and such. This is common, and this happened, in many places long before fracking went in. But nowadays, it is proposed that fracking is causing this to happen in places where it never happened before. Now, one of the reasons why you need to be concerned about fracking is that the chemical mixture that they use to do this fracking is totally unknown. The folks who do it, people like Halliburton, Bechtel, small outfits, they consider it a trade secret. Some folks say that these firms have taken over for Don Corleone and Guido in the chemical waste disposal business. And a lot of the stuff that they're pumping down deep into the rock strata to break it up so they can extract oil is stuff that people used to have to hire Guido and Don Corleone to dump into the city sewers to get rid of. Speaking of which, have you heard about all the barrels of nuclear materials, 50-year-old nuclear crap that have turned up off the coast of California? Don't you just love it? If space aliens ever do decide to come down and check us out, they're going to assume that we are a truly primitive form of life because we tend to defecate where we live and breathe and eat. It takes a pretty primitive life form to despoil the place where you sleep and eat and breathe. I got one guy in the chat room saying they'll probably take one look at us and wipe us out and do the earth a favor. There are people who look at it and they're just amazed. And I think a lot of folks feel helpless. It's like, how do you go up against somebody like a Bechtel? How do you go up against somebody like Halliburton? I mean, who do you go give them black eye to over something like that? Who is it that you challenge to a duel over something like that? You'd like to believe that there's that one SOB out there that you can blame it on, pin it on him, and hang him from a light pole. The problem is, it's corporatocracy. We have corporations that now run the world, and in particular, the United States. And I can tell you, a corporation is by its very nature sociopathic. Okay? A corporation has only one motivation, and that is to provide a return on investment to their shareholders. That's it. That is their only responsibility. And the people who work for these corporations are compensated with a bonus based on how well they help the company produce those profits that pay the shareholders that dividend. The idea of social responsibility seems to be a thing of the past, as corporations are no longer bound to a community where they're headquartered, where their people that work for them live. They no longer feel this responsibility to the community that supports them. Now, the big corporations are multinationals, and you are either a source of revenue or you're in the way. I've been flapping my jaw about Obamacare on just about every one of these broadcasts since about the middle of last year, and I do have another episode of the ongoing Obamacare debacle But I think I'm going to save that one until after the break, because if I read my clock right here, I'm only about 30 seconds away. But did you know that so far more people have lost their health care than have signed up for Obamacare? And Obamacare just hit their 1 million mark. They finally got 1 million people who've signed up. About 250,000 of that million have come to find out that even though they're paying for health care, they don't really have a plan in force yet. Isn't that precious? All right, I've got the bumper music playing in my ear, so it's time for me to slide out of here for a couple minutes while we sell some products and keep the lights burning. I'll be right back. There it is. Yeah. I couldn't find the button. I was running out of bumper music and couldn't find the darn button. I tell you, well, you know, one thing about one of my productions is, you know, if I don't miss a button somewhere along the line, you know, oh well. Talking about Obamacare, you know, they finally got 1 million people who are in theory signed up for Obamacare. Right now, if the statistics hold true, it looks like about 1/4 of those who have signed up and who are making payments for what they think is a health care plan, in reality, have no health care. Because while they were worried about the front end of that Obamacare website to make it nice and inviting and easy and slick for you to go in there and give them all your private personal information, the back end of the thing that forwards the information on to the insurance provider who is actually going to carry the burden of your health insurance, well, that part they didn't pay a whole hell of a lot of attention to, and it appears that the information going back to the insurance companies is junk. So a lot of people right now are paying for health care, thinking they have a plan. Then for whatever reason, they have to go to the hospital or a doctor or something, and, you know, for some kind of a procedure that they think is covered under the plan. They come to find out that, well, you know, even though you've been paying the premium, you don't really have any insurance yet. Now, they'll get it worked out. I'm sure. They will get it worked out. These are just teething pains, you know. This is the, you know, like Microsoft with their alpha release, you know. Usually Microsoft releases the alpha release to somebody like me, you know. I'm their unpaid guinea pig, you know. They give their, you know, buggy piece of software to me so I can check it out before they sell it to, you know, average Joe Schmo. And I'm supposed to write them a little letter saying, hey, you idiots, I tried to do this, that, and the other thing, and it didn't work. You know, usually there's a period of time. I remember when I looked at Microsoft Vista on their behalf. You know, I got a copy of Vista about 6 months before you average peasants on the street got to look at it. And my advice back to Microsoft is put this one back in the can. Let's see what else you got. They released it anyway. But that's kind of what's happened with this Obamacare thing. They put all their eggs in this one basket. They got this Obamacare website, you know, the affordable health care thing, whatever. And you're supposed to just be able to cruise onto this website, fill in God only knows how many pages of very personal, very private information, and trust that everything's going to be handled smoothly. That, you know, they're going to, you know, be good, have good fiduciary responsibility with your money, because, you know, you're giving them access to your checking account. Okay, they can just kind of reach in and grab what they think they need, and, you know, in return, you're supposed to get a health care plan. Well, it seems the part of the website that does the payment, you know, where they reach into your checking account and they grab the money, that part seems to work real good. However, the part where they actually match you up with a healthcare insurance provider, that part of it seems to have some issues. The other part of the plan that has been kind of disappointing is that the Affordable Health Care Act is not attracting that healthy youngster, 21 to 35 years old, that in the past avoided buying health care because you know how it is when you're in your 20s. You figure, I'm immortal. Nothing's ever going to get me, And a lot of times they're right. And they get through, their 20s and into their 30s, and all of a sudden they've got a couple of kids, they got a mortgage, they got a car payment, they got, bills up to here, and they think, oh boy, what if I got sick or injured? I better go ahead and buy a health care plan. So a lot of people just don't buy health care. They don't consider it a worthwhile expense until maybe they're in their 30s or so. They look at things, boy, I got responsibilities. I got kids depending on me. I got this mortgage. I got this car payment. Oh my goodness, what would happen if I got sick or injured? They're the ones who buy health care. And of course, people who are sick want health care because nowadays, if you're really, really sick, ain't no way you can afford to pay what it costs to treat the symptoms of that illness, let alone try to get a cure. Because American medicine isn't about getting cures. It's about managing those symptoms, making sure that even though you might be dying, you don't really give a damn because you're on some kind of drug that makes you not care. That's American medicine nowadays. So bottom line is, for just about everybody involved with this Obamacare thing, the rollout so far has been somewhat disappointing. And now the suggestion is floating about that the insurance companies, burdened by the loss of a lot of policy revenue from plans that they canceled because those plans did not meet the requirements under the Affordable Health Care Act. Let me say that again. The government didn't hold a gun to Blue Cross Blue Shield's head and say, you must cancel all these plans. They took it upon themselves to cancel those plans because those plans were not compliant with Obamacare. Okay? That's bottom line. But because they've lost all that revenue, and the million or so that are currently signed up for Obamacare are your worst case nightmares. They're the people with pre-existing conditions that normally the insurance companies would have said, no, we're not going to cover that. No, you're going to pay for that. No. See, that's what Obamacare was supposed to do. Obamacare was supposed to eliminate this no coverage for pre-existing conditions. Okay, well, yeah, that's all they're getting. So of the million that have signed up for Obamacare, a much higher percentage than expected are people with pre-existing conditions who, frankly, without that health care, could not afford to maintain their survival. Insurance companies are looking at this saying, you know what? We thought this was going to be a great deal. We thought we were going to see a windfall of all these new youngsters coming in who are basically healthy, but we're going to pay outrageous premiums. And they're not signing up. And now we got all these sick people who actually expect us to pay out. That's not how insurance works. The way insurance works is you pay in and we don't pay out. That's how insurance works. I mean, my gosh, if you're not paying in and we still got to pay out, government, we need a bailout. We want to take a look at this here clause in the Obamacare law. See, remember, you anticipated this. You anticipated we might have a little bit of a problem here, and we wrote this right into the law. If we get in trouble because of this here plan, you go and bail us out. You remember TARP? Remember quantitative easing to infinity? Remember all that? Yeah. Take a deep breath, because the next little ditty associated with Obamacare is you get to pay twice. Once for the premium, and once to bail out the insurance companies. They're going to go broke if we don't bail them out. Anyway, I'm hearing bumper music in the background. I got to bail out of here for the last break of the evening. Please do pay attention to these commercial messages. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I hope we were successful in selling some products. It'd be a shame if the lights went out at the studio. You know, those boys got to make a living. Well, I think I gave you an appropriate episode of the ongoing Obamacare scandal. Bottom line is, so far, for all parties, Obamacare has been somewhat of a disappointment. I mean, frankly, the insurance companies thought this was going to be a tremendous windfall. The government thought, holy cow, you know, we're going to get access to about, 1/6 of the U.S. economy. We're going to be able to take a piece of the action on 1/6 of the U.S. economy. Oh, man, this is going to be good stuff. Then a lot of people out there said, oh, man, I got pre-existing conditions. I need somebody else to pay for my health care. I can't afford to pay for this. So, I want my neighbor to pay for my health care. So everybody thought they were going to get, some kind of windfall from somewhere. And so far, that windfall has failed to appear. So now it looks like, once again, Mr. Taxpayer, you are responsible for the failures of Obamacare, and you must ante up and help make up the deficit, because those insurance companies are just too big to fail, or as they're saying, too important to fail. All right, put your hands up. How many of you made arrangements to move to Colorado? Huh? Any of you children of the 60s with your left-handed cigarettes headed for Colorado? Huh? How many? Put your hands up. The long lines, this is an article again from Russia Today, the long lines stretching around Colorado marijuana shops have apparently not gone unnoticed by investors. We talked about a bright spot in the economy caused by all this fracking. That's caused the energy sector in the United States to really come to life. We're now a net energy exporter instead of a net importer of energy products because of our massive deployment of hydraulic fracking. Well, it looks like another up-and-coming economic segment in the U.S. of A. Hey, got to have a bright spot in that economy, because I'll tell you what, it is the economy, dummies. That is the key issue. It looks like the economy of Colorado is going to get a nice shot in the arm. First day sales of legalized recreational marijuana in Colorado topped $1 million. Now, if that doesn't get a politician's attention, because, the key thing about what happened in Colorado is they did not decriminalize marijuana. They legalized it. So now it's like alcohol. They can tax the living hell out of it. Instead of just saying, this is silly, it's a weed that grows wild. How can we possibly pass a law against a weed that grows wild along the side of the road? No, instead of having common sense and just saying, this is ridiculous, we're putting way too much money, we're locking up people who would otherwise be contributing to society, This is stupid. We are going to decriminalize it. If somebody wants to go out into the, the roadside and pick some marijuana and take it home and smoke it, that's their business. The government's got no business being involved in it. But no, Colorado legalized marijuana. So now businesses can grow up around what just last year was a criminal activity operated by Don Corleone and Guido. Probably a guy named Meyer Lansky in there, too. He's got his fingers into everything. But that's neither here nor there. Bottom line is private companies are now involved in the growing and distribution of marijuana. And you want to see a cute picture? I wish I knew exactly where I got this, but here's this nerdy guy with this big, poop-eating grin on his face, hovering over, trying to decide, let's see, do I want some Maui Wowie, or do I want some, you can just, this picture I'm putting on screen right now, you can just see this nerdly guy with his eyes, as big as saucers, trying to make his decision. It's kind of like the guy first time he ever walks into Starbucks. Gee, do I want that mocha latte, whatchamacallit, or this really, sissy drink with all the frothy stuff on it? He's just ogling all the various arrangements of buds, trying to decide, how am I going to spend my allowance this week? I tell you what, this new law in Colorado is going to get a lot of folks out of mom's basement and out doing some shopping. And I can tell you, there will be, ancillary sales. I mean, can you imagine what's going to happen to the sales of Doritos in the near term in Colorado? So, you might want to just think seriously about investing in junk food futures. And one interesting thing about Colorado's legalization of marijuana is, the stores in Colorado that sell marijuana, to keep from getting involved in some sort of a federal entanglement, cannot put their gross receipts for the day in the bank. Now, that's got to have some Weinbergs and Goldblatts absolutely, their heads are spinning around. We're talking projectile vomit. We are talking horrible reactions on Wall Street because, wait a minute. You mean the banks don't get the piece of the action? What's with this? No, that's not the American way. So I would look for some concessions to be made on the part of the federal government in the near term, because I'll tell you what, Washington State is not far behind Colorado, and there's noise in Florida, there's noise in some states here in the Northeast. It may just be that the prohibition against marijuana, which has run longer now than prohibition against alcohol, and has probably cost the economy more to fight than the battles against Al Capone and the Chicagoland gangsters did back during alcohol prohibition. The penalties to American society caused by our insane criminalization of smoking a weed that grows wild by the side of the road may finally be coming to an end. We can only hope that cooler heads will prevail, and there are people here in Virginia, the state where I live. Virginia is one of the more repressive states when it comes to enforcement of marijuana laws. There are people in the state of Virginia serving as much as 10 to 15-year sentences for as little as 2 joints okay? We're not talking about Guido selling pounds of marijuana to elementary school kids. We're talking about some guy who might have got rousted coming out of a bar at night, or might have got caught up in one of these sobriety checkpoints or something, who happened to have 2 marijuana cigarettes in his shirt pocket, serving 10 to 15 years in jail. Now, the interesting thing about this young fella is that chances are he's going to go home, he's going to smoke his 2 marijuana cigarettes, he's going to eat a whole bunch of Doritos, and he's going to go to work in the morning as if nothing had happened and be a productive member of society, paying taxes, paying his mortgage, paying his life or his Obamacare payments and whatever else, you know. But now he is a burden on society because we now have to house him, feed him, give him free health care. How much sense does that make for smoking a weed that grows wild beside the road? We'll just have to see. It looks like the economic potential of legalizing marijuana as opposed to decriminalizing it, the economic potential is starting to get people's attention. There are people out there who are actually thinking seriously about marijuana-related businesses, firms like people who do hydroponic growing equipment. You know, some of those guys have seen stock increase, you know, values of their stock have gone up, you know, 20, 30, 40%, almost overnight. Many related businesses are seeing a little shot in the arm due to the legalization of marijuana. In times as hard as these, I'll take any bright spot. Hey, Virginia, get off your ass. I still think that picture of that nerd checking out all the buds, that's cute. I'm going to blow that one up, get a 6x9 behind me. We'll have to see how that works out. Well, I'll tell you what, we're coming up on only a couple of minutes left in tonight's show. So let me pick very carefully which articles I want to. Yeah, I've only got about a minute and a half, so I want to make sure I get a good one here. Oh, here's an interesting one. FBI drops law enforcement from its mission statement. You know, remember when the FBI was there to enforce federal law? I mean, they were the ones who broke up the gangs that were running booze back during Prohibition. That's really, you know, where J. Edgar got his, you know, made a name for himself. Yeah, the FBI is no longer involved in law enforcement. They're now more concerned with homeland security. Homeland security. That's a buzzword. There's money in that there homeland security. Suckers are willing to pay for that. You know, I hear a lot going back and forth on this Edward Snowden guy. Some say he's a traitor. Others say he is the definition of a true patriot. Now, so far, Edward Snowden is not known to have made a lot of money off of his revelations. Now, a lot of people are fussing because this guy Greenwald might actually make some money off of it. Hard to say. Bottom line is, if the information gets out, we're all served. And I hear the music in the background. My time is up. I'll be back to bark at the moon some more next week. Y'all have a good one now. Bye.
What will you do? calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn around?